Time to even read a tweet before forming an opinion. Kawhi is teaching many about the definition of patience. We continue to wait on the biggest decision this offseason. Will this date be known as Kawhi the Fifth? With the NBA Finals MVP, anything is possible. Now, where would the best landing spot be for the reigning Finals MVP? Returning to Toronto if Danny Green also comes back? Doesn't look like it. The champs would keep their starting lineup intact, which includes Lowry, Siakam, and Gasol. They posted the second-best point differential among a five-man lineup in the playoffs. Let's say Kawhi goes to the Clippers. Then he would be able to dictate the offense, as LA was one of three teams that did not have a single player averaging 65 touches per game this past season. What about that other team in LA? If he goes to the Lakers, it would be a perfect fit if Los Angeles wants to maintain its Showtime style offense. LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Kawhi all ranked in the top 15 in transition field goal percentage last season. But keep this in mind, they would only have one basketball to play with. Woj joining us with much more. Where do things stand right now as we continue to wait on Kawhi?
At a standstill, Kev. The teams, the league really, they're all waiting on Kawhi Leonard. And, I think there was some hope that he'd have a decision by the end of the week. It's Friday. It's 6 o'clock Eastern. And he has not informed any team, anybody, that he has one yet. And there's starting to be an expectation among some of those involved in this that it could extend into tomorrow. But we know how this goes. In an hour or 30 minutes, you could have an epiphany and say, I don't need to sleep on this again. I'm ready to do it. And, there's an unpredictability about how this will resolve itself.
And if he does have that epiphany, we know you'll be here standing by live joining us. Now, as this thought process continues to drag out, when I say drag out, it's less than a week. It's his life. He gets to decide. What does it tell you about that thought process each passing hour?
Listen, it could mean that he's torn and it's down to two teams, or he's still considering all three. It could mean he's known all week what he's going to do, but he wants to validate that thought. He wants to sleep on it again and be sure. Only he knows. He'll explain it, or he won't when it's over, or he'll just show up at training camp and put on a uniform.
He is a unique talent, no doubt about it, on and off the court. And when you go by his pace, you've covered many free agent superstars through the years. Can you compare this thought process to anybody else's?
Well, no. This has been unique in that it has been kept contained. It has extended out. And listen, the fact that the Lakers are involved, you have the Lakers and you have the defending NBA champions. And the chance to put together with LA a big three, maybe unlike we've ever seen, or to bring back a team that would be probably a favorite again to do it, I think that only elevates the intrigue around this decision.
This feels like an all or nothing, chips in the middle of the table, because when he makes his decision, the team he joins, suddenly you're talking about NBA odds to win it all. The other two teams, the domino effect, what effect could that have on the other two teams who would have a ton of money now that they have to spend?
Yeah, and I think for the Lakers, they're going to go out, and if they don't get him, they'll take that $32 million and piece it together among several players, probably Danny Green, Marcus Morris, perhaps DeMarcus Cousins, possibly. The Clippers, because they have so many draft picks and they have cap space and they have a very good team coming back, they don't have to go out and spend all that money. They probably go back into it. In Toronto, there's not a lot of changes to that roster in the short term.
If this story breaks, we know Woj will be standing by live. Thank you.
Thanks, Kev.
Still to come on SportsCenter, we're live from Las Vegas. NBA Summer League showdown set between Zion and R.J. Barrett. What are the expectations for the former Duke phenoms tonight?
Telling Lakers, Clippers, and Raptors fans to just be patient. And then because this is the Kawhi Light Zone, the comments exploded into analysis over what does be patient really mean? She was telling people, be patient. Of course, it's not just fans hanging on this decision. Danny Green has put his own free agency situation off until he learns what Kawhi does, and he spoke about that on his podcast, Inside the Green Room. Take a listen.
I'm worried also. All those things come across the board. If I miss out on opportunities to get the short of the stick, which would suck. So I'm hoping that, he makes a decision soon. We have a couple things in place that's lined up. We're going to see how much longer these games will wait. I don't think much longer than another day or so. And then, hopefully a good decision comes out of it, not just for him, but for me.
So you heard Danny there say he hopes we'll get an answer in the next day or two. Well, the Lakers actually made a decision in less than 24 hours. Oh yeah, the Lakers are now on the clock. Here is Bobby Marks explaining why on Golic and Wingo. Take a listen.
What's supposed to happen is that the Lakers are going to use their $32 million in cap space if or without Kawhi Leonard. They're going to sign Kawhi or free agents and build out the roster, and then they were going to do the Anthony Davis trade. That's kind of how it has to work. And I'm looking at the timing of this. We're 48 hours from July 6th, right? At noon, you can start making trades. What happens if this Kawhi Leonard decision lingers into Sunday, where teams are not going to wait?
Oh, no, teams are not going to wait. This trade has mushroomed out. Now, the dominoes affect 8 teams, 21 total players, and look what's happened to their cap space. So the Raptors already have the most to offer Kawhi, 5 years, $190. The Clippers can offer 4 years, $141. The Lakers, if this gets done, if they make that offer before the AD trade executes and they agree to it, well, that's $138. They're still already starting a little bit behind the other teams. After the AD trade, they would have $11 million less over the life of a 4-year deal, so only be able to offer Kawhi $127 million over the life of the contract. Now, please, could you break down to me a little bit more about this idea of trading into cap space versus not, and why the salaries don't have to quite match?
Right. It's the issue is when the deal was consummated, you got these players over here, Ingram and Ball, making their salary, and Anthony Davis's salary, which goes up once 2019-2020 starts, which it already has. So if you have this amount of space right now, you can sign a player, then trade those guys within the reason and bring back Anthony Davis' salary. If you have to do the deal first, Anthony Davis's larger salary then eats up which roughly comes out to about $2 or $3 million
a year.
Yes, and that takes away from the starting salary, which takes away from the raises, which takes away from down the line. It's like a trickle-down effect. And so the thing is, there's 2 things. One, you could say to New Orleans, to Atlanta, to all the other teams involved in the deal, hey, can you guys wait a little bit? We're still waiting on Kawhi. But they're not going to wait.
Right.
So you have to execute this deal when it's supposed to happen, which is on the 6th, and in which case you're going to have less money in Auburn. You just hope that Kawhi doesn't really care that much about the $11 million.
Well, yeah, and you're right. And by the way, each hour that passes, time is ticking. The 6th is tomorrow. That's Saturday, and it is noon Eastern time that these trades can start to get executed. It's the Lakers and Pelicans, but as you note, it's the Hawks, it's the Sixers, it's the Pistons, it's the Grizzlies, it's the Jazz, it's the Wizards involved in all of this. And it's not just Kawhi who would then have to decide if he would take less money from the Lakers. It's any other players, Kendrick, if they don't get Kawhi. Right. And then they make up that sort of, that hodgepodge pie of who else they might get.
Right.
So if you're Kawhi sitting at home and you're aware of this, is this going to make you speed up your decision to before noon tomorrow, or you're just going to do what you're going to do?
I got to do what I got to do because I'm my own man. Like, at the end of the day, I cannot dictate my future on behalf of another man. It's not called being selfish, but he earned this right. Like, this guy went and won a championship, finals MVP. He got the right to take his time. I mean, this is a big decision for him. Whether it affects whoever, he need to take his time. If the Lakers can't wait, then it up the chances for Toronto, which I think he's going back anyway. I see the 190 on there. He can't pass that up. He can't pass up the 5-year 190. Come on, Kawhi.
Kendrick just saw the money. He was like, ooh. You want to chime in here?
Well, I mean, I think the only person who knows whether or not they feel pressure is Kawhi. But if he does feel that pressure, he is doing an excellent job of resisting it. And that is, the proof is in the pudding in how long he has taken to kind of think about all of those things and weigh all of the things that Amin was just talking about.
The other thing to remember is that $11 million only applies to Kawhi says, I'm signing a 4-year deal. Right? If he's deciding to sign a smaller deal, that money difference between them and the Clippers and the Raptors gets smaller and smaller because the whole thing is that money difference happens over the span of 5 years or 4 years. So if he says, I'm signing a 2-year deal anyway, a 1+1 or 2+1, then it's not as big of a difference in money.
And the incentive to sign a 2-year deal is that if he reaches 2 more years, he hits that 10-year veteran level, which then will entitle him to more salary afterward. If he signs at the 8-year level, then obviously he wouldn't get as much salary in those later 2 or 3 years.
And to explain a very important point to people, it's not just the idea that he's going to get 35% of the cap versus 30% of the cap right now. It's also the cap goes up. So it's a bigger slice of a bigger pizza pie. So there's a lot of money he's got on the table there.
Before we go to break, I do want you to tell what you told on our earlier show today about his college days and the pace of his making his decision.
So we interviewed Steve Fisher, his college coach, and I asked him, Coach, how did you get him to come here? And he said, I'll be honest with you, if it were up to Kawhi, he'd still be sitting right now trying to figure out what school to go to. He's a very methodical decision maker, deliberate, right? And so we saw a report from Jason Dumas say that when he finally committed San Diego State, they weren't sure that he'd show up until summer classes started because he wouldn't communicate with them. He was just gone for weeks on end. So 6 days is nothing in Kawhi time.
I don't know. I feel the responsibility to tell Kawhi, if you're watching out there, training camp starts like September 28th, depending on the team. So that if you make everyone wait until then,
the 27th.
We're going to have some serious.
27th, exactly.
I mean, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem.
He's going back to Sirius Radio to do the rest of his show, but we'll be here.